All right, guys, welcome back today. Today we're going to finish up chapter 15 notes here, talking about the Trail of Tears with the Cherokee Native Americans, and wrapping up chapter 15. So, the Trail of Tears. So first we're going to start with the Indian Removal Act. In his inaugural address, Jackson also mentioned his desire for a just policy toward Native Americans. Relations had been tense between the Native Americans and settlers on the frontier since the American Revolution. So, because some of those Native Americans sided with the British, Americans weren't really too happy with them. Settlers, of course, on the frontier wanted to push the Native Americans off their land into the West. Okay, so that we just want to keep moving them west, keep moving them west, and living on land. Native Americans, though, fought hard to keep their land. They didn't want to give up easily. Of course, they wanted their land. They didn't want to be pushed off it, so they fought for it. Now, Jackson believed the best way to improve relations was to relocate the Native Americans farther west. So that's just what we're going to do. We're going to start moving them west. So in 1830, Jackson persuaded Congress to pass the Indian Removal Act. Okay, just like it sounds, we're going to remove the Indians from their land. So the act encouraged all Native Americans living east of the Mississippi River to move west of the Mississippi River. Okay, so we wanted them to move west, basically into the Louisiana Purchase. When tribes didn't move, they were eventually forced to move west, and we'll see that here in a minute with the Cherokee. Now, the act affected several Native American tribes in the South and Tennessee, specifically the Cherokee. Okay, that's who we're mainly going to look at. They were one of the largest tribes, and they put up the most fight. All right, so a Cherokee Nation. In 1791, the U.S. government signed a treaty guaranteeing the Cherokee Nation that they could be independent and have their own government. Okay, so Native American tribes aren't part of the U.S. government at this time. They are basically their own little country within our country. So the Cherokee lived in parts of Tennessee, North Carolina, Georgia, and Alabama. Okay, so they lived in a few different places. Okay, they had a wide nation. They created a society with its own government and constitution. So they had laws, they had a system of government. Okay, it's not like they were just living out there by themselves in their tents. Once the Indian Removal Act had been passed, the Cherokee went to court. Okay, they were going to fight the Indian Removal Act in court. Cherokee Chief John Ross argued their case before the Supreme Court in Worcester versus Georgia. Okay, so I know we've looked a little bit at this already. We're going to get into it a little bit more here. All right, so the Cherokee Nation argued that Georgia state laws were not valid in Cherokee land. And in 1832, Chief Justice Marshall ruled in favor of the Cherokee in Worcester versus Georgia. He said that Georgia laws were not valid in Cherokee lands. So this is still true today. United States laws are not valid in Native American land. Okay, so on reservations and land that Native Americans own, United States laws, state laws are not valid. Jackson, of course, didn't like this though, and he ignored the ruling. Okay, so he just really didn't care. And he ordered the Cherokee be removed from their lands. All right, so he's going to ignore this. He's going to say, he is quoted in saying, "Let Marshall enforce this law." So he orders the Cherokee to be removed. He refused to enforce the Supreme Court ruling. Jackson did. So really the court's decision was never carried out. Okay, so it's really like this court case never happens because Jackson refuses to enforce the ruling. So the Cherokee are forced to leave from their lands. So in 1838, the U.S. government sent 7,000 troops to forcibly remove the Cherokee from their lands. The troops forced them to travel from their land to Indian Territory. Okay, basically what is today Oklahoma, right across the Mississippi River, right on the other side of what is today Arkansas. So more than 4,000 men, women, and children died from the harsh weather, disease, and lack of food during the 6-month trek. Okay, so it took them 6 months to walk from parts of Tennessee, Georgia, North Carolina, Alabama to what is now Oklahoma. 4,000 men, 4,000 people are dying on this journey. All right. This trail that they took, of course, we now call the Trail of Tears. Okay, so all of this comes from the Indian Removal Act passed by Andrew Jackson in 1830. All right. All right, that's it for today. Okay. That is all of chapter 15. The next thing we'll get into is chapter 16. It'll be really short, talking about the second Tennessee state constitution. And we'll be doing that next week. All right, so we will see y'all next time.